Have you ever noticed how tired you are? Not the kind of tired that a weekend off or a good night's sleep can fix, but that deep, invisible exhaustion that sits somewhere between your chest and your thoughts. The one that comes from trying too hard for too long. You keep pushing, chasing, proving, managing, fixing, perfecting. You try to be the strong one, the reliable one, the positive one, the one who holds everything together. And yet, even when you do everything right, it feels like you're running on fumes. Like you're swimming in a river that never stops moving, while the world keeps yelling at you to go faster. We live in a culture that worships effort. Since childhood, we've been trained to believe that success equals constant motion. Don't give up, they told us. Winners never quit. But nobody warned us about the other side of that message, the quiet despair that comes from never feeling like you've done enough. You keep trying to climb an invisible mountain, but the summit keeps moving higher. Every achievement becomes just another checkpoint before the next round of pressure begins. It's like holding sand in your hand. The tighter you squeeze, the more it slips away. You've probably told yourself 100 times, I just need to try harder. I just need to stay strong. But what if that's exactly what's draining you? What if the constant effort to control every part of your life is what's keeping you stuck? Think about it. Every time you force something, a relationship, a career move, a plan that clearly doesn't fit anymore, it doesn't bring peace. It brings friction. It brings that quiet, familiar tension that sits in your shoulders, that makes your jaw clench, that steals your sleep. The truth is, we've confused control with safety. We think that if we can plan enough, manage enough, anticipate enough, we'll finally be okay. But the world doesn't work like that. Life moves like water. The more you try to grip it, the more it slips away. You might not notice it at first because society rewards the ones who hustle, who grind, who never stop. You get applause for being the last one in the office, for sacrificing your weekends, for doing whatever it takes. But somewhere along the way, you start to lose something far more important, your connection to yourself. You forget what it feels like to simply be. You wake up every morning with a to-do list instead of a heartbeat. You start measuring your worth in numbers, emails answered, steps counted, boxes checked, instead of presence, joy, or peace. And the irony? The more you chase control, the more chaotic everything feels. Because deep down, you know you're fighting a battle you can't win. Time doesn't slow down for your plans. People don't always behave the way you expect. The world doesn't bend just because you want it to. So you tighten your grip even more, believing that effort will save you, when in reality, it's the very thing that's drowning you. There's a moment that comes for everyone, usually quietly, when you realize you're exhausted not from what you're doing, but from what you're resisting. You're tired of pretending that you're okay. Tired of pushing through every storm like it's your job to control the weather. Tired of carrying the invisible weight of being the one who must always figure it out. And maybe, if you're honest, you're tired of fighting life itself. That's where something ancient, and strangely revolutionary, enters the picture. A different way of being that doesn't require you to burn out to feel alive. The Taoists called it Wu Wei, the art of action without forcing. It's not about giving up or sitting on the sidelines. It's about aligning yourself with the natural flow of life instead of constantly swimming against it. Imagine being that surfer who doesn't try to overpower the wave but learns to ride it. Imagine being the dancer who doesn't fight the rhythm but becomes one with it. That's what it means to live in flow. To move with life instead of trying to conquer it. But before we get there, you need to see what's really going on inside you. You've built your entire life around effort, around trying, fixing, improving. It's not your fault. You were taught that hard work solves everything. But no one told you that effort without awareness becomes self-sabotage. No one told you that trying to control what isn't meant to be controlled, people, time, emotions, outcomes, is like rowing a boat against the current until you collapse. And then you wonder why you feel so heavy. Maybe that's what's happening to you right now. You feel the tension in your body, the fatigue in your mind, the quiet voice that whispers, there has to be another way. And there is. But the first step isn't to do more, it's to stop. To pause. To notice how much of your energy is spent fighting the natural rhythm of things. To ask yourself the question that most people are too afraid to ask: what would happen if I stopped forcing? That question alone can shake your whole world. Because the moment you stop fighting the flow of life, you start to feel something you haven't felt in a long time: peace. Not the empty kind you post about online, but a deep, grounded peace that comes from accepting that you don't have to hold everything together all the time. That maybe life isn't something to be dominated or mastered, but something to be experienced, like a river that knows exactly where it's going, even if you don't. And that's where the real transformation begins. When you start seeing that your exhaustion is not a flaw, not a weakness, but a message. It's life's way of telling you, you've been fighting too long. Let go. In that moment, you realize that the greatest strength doesn't come from control, it comes from trust. And once you start trusting, the weight begins to lift. Slowly, quietly, but unmistakably. You start breathing again. You start living again. Because the truth is, you were never meant to carry the world on your shoulders. You were meant to move with it. To flow with it. And when you finally stop resisting, you'll realize the river was never against you. It was always carrying you home. Think about how often you've been told to take control of your life. To make things happen. To hustle until it hurts. It's the mantra of modern culture: move faster, do more, stay in charge. But what if the real secret to peace isn't about control at all? What if it's about learning how to let go? There's an ancient word for that: wu wei. It comes from Taoism, and at first glance, it sounds impossible to the modern mind. It literally means non-doing or effortless action. And right away, your brain resists it. Because we've been trained to believe that if you're not pushing, you're losing. If you're not grinding, you're falling behind. But wu wei doesn't mean you stop acting. It means you start acting with life instead of against it. Picture a surfer. He doesn't conquer the ocean. He doesn't tell the wave what to do. He studies it, senses it, waits for the right moment, and then moves with it. His power isn't in control, it's in harmony. He's not forcing anything. He's flowing with something far greater than himself. That's wu wei. The art of effortless alignment with the rhythm of life. Now think about your own days. How much of your energy goes into fighting what is? Forcing conversations that don't feel natural. Holding onto jobs, relationships, or habits that have already expired. Pushing yourself to perform even when your body and mind are screaming for rest. You keep thinking, if I just try a little harder, I can make it work. But maybe the problem isn't that you're not trying hard enough, maybe it's that you're trying in the wrong direction. There's a line from Lao Tzu, the ancient Taoist master, that says, when nothing is done, nothing is left undone. On the surface, it sounds like a riddle. But what he meant was that when you stop forcing life, life starts to unfold naturally. It doesn't mean you sit around waiting for things to happen. It means your actions come from awareness, not anxiety. From connection, not control. From intuition, not fear. Imagine dancing to a song. When you're in flow, you don't think about every step. You just move. You don't question whether you're doing it right. You feel the rhythm. You let it guide you. But the moment you start overthinking, counting every beat, judging every move, you lose the magic. Life works the same way. The more you try to choreograph every moment, the less alive it feels. Wu wei is that moment when you stop fighting the music and start dancing again. It's a return to your natural rhythm. To the part of you that already knows how to live without forcing, without overthinking, without needing to prove your worth through endless effort. And the truth is, you've experienced it before. You've felt it. Those rare moments when everything just clicks, when the right words come out, the timing is perfect, and life feels effortless. That's flow. That's wu wei in action. But here's the catch, you can't force flow. The very act of trying to make it happen kills it. Flow is a state that emerges when you stop gripping so tightly to outcomes. When you trust the process enough to show up fully, without fear of what comes next. It's the writer who loses track of time while typing, the athlete who moves instinctively, the parent who stops worrying about being perfect and just connects. In that space, everything becomes lighter, freer, more alive. Yet for most of us, the idea of letting go feels terrifying. We mistake surrender for weakness. We think if we stop controlling, everything will fall apart. But look around, has all that control really brought you peace? Or has it made you tense, anxious, always one step away from burnout? You can't dominate the tide. You can't schedule the sunrise. You can't plan your way into serenity. Life doesn't respond to pressure. It responds to presence. The paradox is that Wu Wei takes incredible strength. It's not passive. It's not lazy. It's the courage to act with awareness instead of fear. The discipline to pause before reacting. The wisdom to know when to push and when to release. It's realizing that you can move mountains not by attacking them, but by walking with the terrain. This is what Alan Watts meant when he said that Wu Wei is the art of sailing rather than rowing. The sailor doesn't fight the wind. He reads it. He adjusts his sails, knowing that his power lies in cooperation, not domination. That's how life wants to move through you, not through frantic struggle, but through graceful adaptation. You don't need to control the wind. You just need to position yourself to catch it. And here's the most beautiful part, when you stop forcing, you create space. Space for the right things to enter. The right opportunities, the right people, the right timing. Because life moves in cycles, not straight lines. There are seasons for action and seasons for stillness. When you stop trying to rush the winter, you finally allow the spring to arrive. So ask yourself, where in your life are you swimming against the current? Where are you still trying to force something that clearly isn't flowing? Maybe it's a job that drains you, a relationship that no longer fits, or a dream that's become a burden. What would happen if, just for a moment, you stopped pushing and started listening? What if you trusted that life already knows where to take you, if only you'd stop resisting the direction it's trying to move? That's the essence of Wu Wei. The lost art of flow. It's not about doing less, it's about doing differently. With presence instead of pressure. With trust instead of tension. With heart instead of hurry. Because when you align yourself with the natural current of life, you stop feeling like you're drowning. You realize the river isn't against you. It's been carrying you all along. And when you finally understand that, something shifts. You stop chasing life. You start dancing with it. And that's when the real magic begins, the kind that doesn't come from control, but from connection. From flow. From remembering that you were never meant to fight the wave. You were meant to ride it. There was a time, not so long ago, when words like Tao, Zen, or meditation sounded strange to the Western ear, like fragments of some faraway mysticism that had nothing to do with real life. Back then, the idea of letting go seemed almost irresponsible. We were told to fight, to plan, to dominate, to always be in charge. Then, a man named Alan Watts came along and quietly blew the walls off that worldview. He didn't arrive with robes or incense or a new religion. He came with a voice that was calm, witty, and dangerously honest. And through that voice, he built a bridge between two worlds that had been staring at each other from opposite sides of the human experience. Watts wasn't trying to preach. He wasn't trying to convert anyone. He was trying to wake us up, to remind us that beneath all our noise and ambition, there is a deeper rhythm guiding everything. He was one of the first to translate the wisdom of Taoism and Zen into language that the Western heart could understand. He saw that our obsession with control was not strength, it was fear. The fear of losing ground, of losing meaning, of losing ourselves. He understood that the modern world had created an incredible paradox. We were achieving more than ever, yet feeling emptier than ever. We built systems to manage everything, from our time to our emotions, and still, something essential was missing. Watts had this remarkable way of taking ancient Eastern ideas and turning them into vivid, human metaphors. He would say, you don't look at life as a problem to be solved. You live it as a dance. That single sentence flipped an entire worldview upside down. Because we've been trained to treat life like a business project, with goals, deadlines, milestones, and metrics of success. But what's reminded us that life is not about reaching the end as quickly as possible. You don't listen to a song just to hear the final note. You listen to enjoy the whole thing, every rise, every pause, every beat. And yet, that idea terrified people. The Western mind, built on logic and linear thinking, didn't want to hear about flow or surrender. We wanted control, predictability, safety. The thought of not being in charge felt like chaos. But what's challenged that fear? He said the chaos we're so afraid of is actually the rhythm of life itself. The more you try to make everything certain, the more you cut yourself off from the very experience of living. He once compared it to trying to capture the wind. The moment you close your fist, it's gone. He understood something profound about us. We don't really want peace, we want control disguised as peace. We say we want balance, but what we really mean is, I want everything to go my way. What's exposed that illusion with compassion and humor? He didn't scold. He laughed, that kind of laugh that makes you realize he's not mocking you, he's inviting you to see the absurdity of the human condition. And once you see it, you can't unsee it. What made him different was that he didn't just repeat Eastern philosophy, he lived it in his teaching style. His talks weren't lectures. They were experiences, free-flowing, spontaneous, unpredictable, just like life itself. He'd wander between stories, jokes, and deep reflections, and somehow you'd leave not with answers but with clarity. That was the paradox of Watts. He didn't fill your mind, he cleared it. He became the translator of something ancient, but more importantly, he became a mirror. He showed us our collective madness, the way we've mistaken busyness for purpose, achievement for meaning, and progress for peace. He pointed out that our constant striving is not proof of ambition, it's evidence of disconnection. You're missing the point, he would say. The meaning of life is just to be alive. It is so plain and so simple. And yet, everybody rushes around in a great panic as if it were necessary to achieve something beyond themselves. That line hits differently now, doesn't it? Because deep down, we know he's right. We've built entire lives around chasing moments of arrival that never last. And every time we reach one, another immediately takes its place. We live in a perpetual almost there. But what invites us to stop running and simply be here? Not as an escape, but as an act of courage, to face reality as it is, not as we wish it to be. He didn't pretend that letting go was easy. He knew the Western mind was addicted to doing, fixing, analyzing. He said, you can't get rid of the ego by trying to get rid of the ego. It's like trying to bite your own teeth. That one stings because it's true. The harder you try to stop controlling, the more you're still trying to control. The only way out, he said, is to see the game for what it is, to laugh at it, and in that laughter, you're free. Alan Watts was, in many ways, a rebel wrapped in serenity. He stood between East and West, between logic and mystery, between control and surrender, and said, look, there's another way. He didn't ask us to believe anything. He asked us to notice. Notice how life keeps moving whether you fight it or not. Notice how the river keeps flowing even when you're too busy planning your route. Notice how peace arrives the moment you stop demanding it. And that's why he matters now more than ever. Because in a world louder and faster than ever before, his message feels almost revolutionary. You don't have to fight life to live it. You don't have to win to be free. You don't need to understand everything to trust it. His voice is calm, playful, alive, still whispers through the chaos of modern life, saying, stop rowing. Feel the current. You're already moving. So maybe that's where the bridge he built truly leads, not just between East and West, but between the noise in your mind and the silence within you. Between control and trust. Between the person you think you have to be and the person you already are. Because once you cross that bridge, even for a moment, you begin to see that all along, life was never asking you to conquer it. It was inviting you to join the dance. Close your eyes for a second and imagine a river. Not a small, quiet stream, but a vast, powerful current moving with a force that could carry entire forests downstream. Now imagine someone in that river, thrashing, fighting, kicking against the flow, desperate to reach a point that doesn't exist. Every muscle burns, every movement feels like survival, but no matter how hard they try, they don't get closer, they only get more exhausted. That image, Alan Watts said, is the perfect metaphor for modern life. Because that's what most of us are doing, swimming against the current, calling it progress. We keep telling ourselves that we're fighting for success, for happiness, for love, for peace. But if we're honest, half the time we're just fighting, against time, against uncertainty, against ourselves. We call it ambition, discipline, resilience. But deep down, we know the truth, we're tired. Tired of trying to control the uncontrollable. Tired of carrying expectations so heavy they pull us under. And the harder we fight, the further away we drift from the very peace we're chasing. Watts once said that the cause of human suffering isn't what happens to us, it's our resistance to what happens. The pain doesn't come from the current. It comes from the fight. Think about it. A breakup, a layoff, a disappointment, the event itself passes. It's our refusal to let it go that lingers. We keep replaying, reanalyzing, rewriting the past as if one more thought could change it. But all it does is tighten the knot inside us. We don't realize that sometimes peace isn't found by changing what is, it's found by accepting it. Life, like the river, has its own intelligence. It knows where to go. It knows how to carve through mountains, how to carry silt to the ocean, how to feed valleys along the way. You don't have to teach the river how to flow. You don't have to tell life how to unfold. But the human mind hates that truth. We crave control. We want guarantees. We want to decide where the current takes us, even if we don't really know where we're going. So we paddle harder, faster, determined to make it happen, while life quietly whispers, "You're making it harder." You've probably felt that in your own story. Those moments when you push with everything you have, against circumstances, people, even yourself, and nothing works. The more you insist, the more it slips away. It's like trying to hold water in your hands. You can't. The tighter your grip, the faster it escapes. That's not failure. That's nature showing you a truth we keep forgetting. You were never meant to control the current. You were meant to learn how to float. But floating takes trust, and trust is terrifying. It feels like surrendering to chaos. It feels like giving up. Yet there's a profound difference between giving up and letting go. Giving up is despair, it's rooted in fear. Letting go is wisdom, it's rooted in awareness. One drains you, the other frees you. Letting go means saying, I can't control this, but I can choose how I meet it. It's the moment when your clenched fists finally open, when your shoulders drop, and you realize you don't have to swim the entire river to reach peace. You just have to stop fighting it. That's the essence of the struggle we all face. The ego, that voice that says, I must, I should, I can't lose, believes control equals safety. It doesn't trust the flow because the flow doesn't guarantee results. It demands surrender, and surrender feels like death to the ego. But ironically, it's only when we surrender that we truly live. It's only when we stop resisting that we start breathing again. Alan Watts used to say, you are not something separate from the universe. You are the universe playing at being human. That means the current you're fighting isn't against you, it is you. The river isn't your enemy. It's your reflection. Every time you resist life, you resist yourself. Every time you demand certainty, you cut yourself off from the wonder of being alive. Because life isn't meant to be predictable. It's meant to be experienced. Imagine this, you're standing in a river, finally still. You let your feet sink into the mud. You stop moving. At first, fear rushes in, your mind screams, you'll drown. But then something unexpected happens. You realize the water holds you up. You float. The current carries you, not away from yourself, but closer to something deeper, an ease that's been missing for years. The struggle was never about survival. It was about trust. And here's the paradox: what's revealed, when you stop fighting, you don't lose control, you gain alignment. You start to see the hidden rhythm beneath everything, the way events unfold in perfect timing when you stop forcing them. The right people appear. The right opportunities surface. Not because you planned them, but because you made space for them. You stopped cluttering life with noise long enough for life to breathe through you. But make no mistake, this isn't easy. Everything in our culture tells you to fight harder, to push through, to never settle. The art of flowing with life feels almost rebellious. It goes against everything we've been conditioned to believe. That's why practicing it takes courage. Real courage. The courage to trust the unknown. To let the river take you somewhere new, somewhere you can't map ahead of time. The courage to believe that you don't need to control life for it to love you back. So maybe the next time you feel that inattention, that familiar urge to push, to fix, to demand, you can pause. You can take a breath and ask yourself, what if I stop fighting right now? What if I trust the current? That single choice might change everything. Because peace doesn't come when the river calms down, it comes when you stop thrashing. The truth is, you can't outswim the river. You can only learn to move with it. And when you do, you'll realize that all along, the current wasn't dragging you under. It was carrying you home, to yourself. You've been told your whole life that control is power. That if you plan carefully enough, work hard enough, and keep your guard up, you can shape life exactly the way you want. It sounds empowering, right? But somewhere along the way, that belief turned into a cage, an invisible one made of expectations, pressure, and fear. You wake up every morning already sprinting, not because you're chasing a dream, but because you're terrified of falling behind. Every calendar reminder, every urgent email, every new task piles up like bricks in the walls around you. You tell yourself you're free, but you can't remember the last time you actually felt free. Alan Watts saw this coming decades ago. He called it the Western disease, the obsession with doing, achieving, and optimizing until life becomes an endless checklist. We worship productivity like it's a religion. We fill every second with motion because stillness makes us uneasy. Somewhere, deep down, we've come to believe that slowing down equals failure. But let's be honest, what has this endless striving actually brought us? Anxiety disguised as ambition. Perfectionism dressed up as discipline. Success that feels strangely hollow. You see it everywhere. People scrolling through their phones, checking news, checking likes, checking progress. It's not connection. It's addiction, to control, to validation, to certainty. We've built a culture where busy equals worthy. We've confused motion with meaning. And the cruelest part is, we think this is normal. We brag about exhaustion. We call burnout dedication. We post quotes about grinding harder while quietly falling apart inside. We're managing life like a factory instead of living it like a miracle. Think about how early this starts. We teach kids to compete before we teach them to breathe. We reward achievement before we teach peace. From the moment we enter school, the message is clear: sit still, perform, get ahead. And by the time we're adults, we've internalized that pressure so deeply that we can't tell where the world's expectations end and our own begin. We keep running the race even when we don't remember signing up for it. And every time we slow down, that inner voice, trained by years of conditioning, starts whispering, "You're falling behind. You're wasting time. You should be doing more." That voice is the warden of the invisible prison. It convinces you that safety comes from control, that chaos must be eliminated, that every problem must be solved right now. But life doesn't work like that. Life is inherently uncertain, unpredictable, alive. And our obsession with controlling it kills its magic. We don't realize that the more we try to perfect everything, the more disconnected we become, from others, from nature, from ourselves. Alan Watts once compared this to trying to capture the fragrance of a flower by locking it in a glass jar. You preserve the shape, but you lose the scent. That's what control does. It gives you structure but steals your spirit. It makes life look organized but feel lifeless. The real tragedy is that most people don't even see the walls closing in. They think they're managing. They think that tension in their chest is just part of being responsible. But it's not responsibility, it's resistance. It's the ego refusing to admit that some things aren't meant to be controlled. The Western mind, raised on goals and deadlines, believes it can conquer anything. But there's a difference between creating your life and micromanaging it. Between discipline and domination. Between direction and control. The first empowers you. The second exhausts you. And the line between them is thinner than you think. We've built an entire society on the illusion that control equals safety. Governments, corporations, even our personal relationships, all run on the same belief that if we measure everything, predict everything, and monitor everything, we can finally relax. But it never works. The more data we gather, the more anxious we become. The more we plan, the more we fear things going off plan. We don't notice that our need for control is actually feeding the very chaos we're trying to escape. Here's the irony: control is just fear wearing a confident mask. It's the fear of not being enough. The fear of being vulnerable. The fear of facing the unknown. That's why we cling to schedules, goals, and identities. Because they make us feel solid in a world that's always shifting. But life is not a spreadsheet. It's not a project. It's a pulse. And the moment you treat it like a system to manage, you lose the heartbeat. So what happens if you start loosening that grip? What if you stop trying to manage every emotion, every relationship, every outcome? You begin to see that there's a difference between responsibility and rigidity. Between participating in life and policing it. You can plan your day, but you can't plan your growth. You can organize your home, but you can't organize your soul. And when you finally understand that, something inside you begins to exhale. What's believed that the only real control we have is how we relate to life, not how we dominate it. You can't stop the waves, but you can learn how to surf. You can't control the wind, but you can adjust your sails. You can't dictate outcomes, but you can choose your alignment. That's the power that control can never give you, the power of presence. Breaking out of this invisible prison isn't about abandoning responsibility. It's about remembering that your worth isn't tied to how much you achieve or how perfectly you perform. It's about replacing constant effort with conscious engagement. It's realizing that doing less can actually mean living more, more fully, more freely, more truthfully. And yes, it takes courage. Because stepping out of control means stepping into uncertainty. It means trusting life, trusting timing, trusting yourself. But that's where freedom lives, not in the certainty you've built, but in the space you've avoided. Because when you stop trying to control everything, you finally discover something deeper. Life doesn't need your permission to flow. It's been flowing all along. All it's waiting for is you, to stop guarding the gate, open your hands, and walk out of the cage you built with your own willpower. That's when you realize the walls were never real. They were made of your own fear. And once you see that, you're free. Not because you took control, but because you finally let go. There comes a point in every life when you realize that fighting harder isn't the answer. You've been pushing, planning, forcing, trying to bend reality to your will, and yet, it still slips through your fingers. You can't make people stay. You can't stop time. You can't predict every outcome. And suddenly, all that striving feels less like power and more like exhaustion. That's the moment when something deep inside you whispers, there has to be another way. That whisper is the beginning of courage, not the loud kind that runs into battle, but the quiet kind that chooses surrender over struggle. Letting go is terrifying because it feels like loss. The ego screams that if you loosen your grip, everything will collapse. But here's the truth: what's meant for you doesn't need to be forced. What's real doesn't require exhaustion. Letting go isn't giving up, it's choosing alignment over control. It's trading panic for peace. Alan Watts called this the wisdom of insecurity. He said real freedom begins the moment you stop demanding guarantees from life. Because security, as we imagine it, doesn't exist. Life will always be unpredictable. The more you try to freeze it into something certain, the more you kill its beauty. True peace isn't about having everything under control, it's about trusting that even when you don't, you'll still be okay. That's what courage looks like in the modern world, not the ability to dominate, but the willingness to trust. To trust the process, the timing, yourself. It's the courage to stop managing every outcome and start participating in life as it unfolds. It's waking up one morning and saying, I don't need to know what happens next. I just need to be here, fully alive, in this moment. That's the essence of Wu Wei, the art of effortless action, the strength in stillness, the calm in motion. But letting go isn't passive. It's active awareness. It's choosing to act from intuition, not fear. To make decisions not out of desperation but from clarity. It's saying no to what drains you and yes to what feels real. It's being rooted enough to flow. Imagine a tree in a storm. It doesn't resist the wind. It bends. It moves. That flexibility is what saves it. In the same way, when you stop resisting life, you don't lose stability, you gain resilience. Letting go means trusting that you can navigate uncertainty without needing to control every wave. It means realizing that your worth isn't measured by how much you manage, fix, or accomplish, but by how deeply you live. You can still have goals, dreams, ambitions, but now they're guided by flow, not fear. You work, create, love, not to fill a void but to express who you already are. And yes, this shift doesn't happen overnight. You'll still catch yourself tightening your grip, still hear that old inner voice whispering, what if it all falls apart? That's okay. Every time you notice that tension and choose to release it, even just a little, you're practicing courage. You're rewriting your relationship with life. You're saying, I trust the current to carry me where I need to go. That's not weakness. That's mastery. Think about what happens when you finally stop forcing things. The space you create fills with possibility. The right people start appearing, not because you chased them, but because your energy changed. Opportunities begin to flow your way, not because you hunted them down, but because you're no longer blocking them with fear and tension. You start to feel lighter, freer, more alive. The universe seems to respond differently when you stop trying to control it, because now you're cooperating with it. What's used to say that life is not a problem to be solved but a reality to be experienced. When you stop trying to fix life, you begin to live it. You laugh more. You notice details, the way the light hits your coffee in the morning, the sound of the rain, the pulse of your own heartbeat. Those small, ordinary things suddenly feel sacred. Because when you're no longer rushing towards some imagined future, you finally have time to notice the miracle of now. That's the paradox of Wu Wei. The moment you stop striving to become something, you realize you already are. The moment you release control, you discover true power, not the power to dominate, but the power to align. It's not about doing nothing. It's about doing the right thing, at the right time, for the right reason, with no inner resistance. That's where peace lives. That's where freedom begins. So ask yourself, where in your life are you still fighting the river? Where are you clinging, gripping, forcing what clearly wants to flow in its own way? Maybe it's time to let it move. Maybe it's time to step back, breathe, and say, I trust. Because the truth is, life doesn't need your control. It needs your cooperation. It needs your presence. And once you taste that kind of trust, once you feel what it's like to live without the constant weight of resistance, everything changes. You stop trying to win at life and start dancing with it. You stop surviving and start experiencing. You realize that the river has never been against you. It's been carrying you all along, waiting for the day you'd finally stop fighting and allow it to take you home. That's the courage to let go. It's not the end of effort, it's the beginning of peace. Not the death of control, but the birth of trust. And once you step into that space, you understand something profound. You were never lost, never behind, never broken. You were just swimming too hard to notice that the current was already guiding you exactly where you needed to be. Thank you for staying with me until the end of this journey. I know your time is valuable. If this message spoke to you, if it gave you even one moment of clarity or peace, I'd be grateful if you'd let me know. A simple like, a comment with your thoughts, or subscribing to the channel helps this community grow, and it helps more people who might need these words to find them. Share your reflections below. I do read them. I'll see you in the next chapter. Until then, take care of your peace.